Today we are going to study about basics of communication. Communication plays a very important role in one's life. It can be defined as the exchange of information, ideas, and knowledge between sender and receiver through an accepted code of symbols. Or you can say communication is a multi-dimensional interactive process of sharing sets of signs, symbols, and language from one person to another person so that a suitable response results. See, this image showcases how the two people they are communicating with each other, they are exchanging information. It's very important to know the role of communication. It is the reciprocal stimulation and response between individuals. When two people they are sitting and one asks a question, the other automatically gives the answer. If he's not in a mood to give an answer, at least he nods his head. So it's kind of a response and makes social as well as professional interaction possible. So somehow when the people they are interacting, it's like a give and take relationship between your words and the ideas. And communication in one's life is as important as neurons are important for the body to function properly. It's like a network, and here I have compared the communication with the neurons, which actually they are present in the body and plays a vital role, and it controls the entire body function. The same way, when you communicate, you are actually connecting yourself to the your society, to the nation, or to, I must say, to the entire globe, so that you are able to express yourself globally. Now, just imagine when you are not communicating, your life will be like these zombies. You know, zombies, they are basically a willless and speechless humans, strange in appearance or behavior. So, when you don't have anything to think, we don't have anything to speak, so we'll be like these zombies only. So, it's always recommended to speak and to communicate whatever ideas you have in your mind. Do communicate to your friend, to your society, so that your ideas flourishes to the other person, and maybe they are able to materialize your ideas in a different concept. So now we'll talk about the communication cycle or communication process. The communication process has several components that enables the transmission of a message. So here are the various parts. The first is the sender. This is a person that is delivering a message to the recipient. Then you have a message. Then you have the channel of communication. This is a transmission or method of delivering the message. And then you have the decoding receiver, then the decoding, and then the feedback. So basically, uh, the sender basically has an idea, or basically the beginning of a process communication process involves the sender creating an idea that they plan to send to another person or a group of people. Essentially, they are planning the overall subject matter or information they want to transmit. The sender then encodes the message. Once the sender develops an idea, they translate it in the form that can be transmitted to someone else. This means they transform the thoughts of the information they want to send into a certain format. For example, if you're writing a letter, you will translate your idea into words. And if you are speaking, then you need to take care of your words, what kind of words you have to choose while communicating. So that particular portion is known as your encoding, because the message can be your in a written form or in a oral form. So in both the form you need to take care how you have to encode the message. Then the next is your the sender selects the channel of the communication that will be used. Then you, if for example, some communication mediums include your speaking, writing, or electronic transmission, or even non-verbal communication. So if you're communicating at workplace, make sure that you select the proper and most professional channel of communication. So you have to very wisely select the channel through which you want to communicate your message. Then next is your like receiver. The message is received by the receiver. This step in the communication process is done by hearing the message, seeing it, feeling it, or any other form of reception. So, whatever the form is, the receiver is at the receiving end. Then the receiver decodes the message. The like in other words, they interpret the message, they receive and they interpret it and convert it into a thought. After they have done this, they analyze the message and attempt to understand it. This particular is the receiver's part. He tries to understand, he interpret it, and the like communication process is performed effectively when the sender and receiver they have the same meaning for the transmitted message. Then the receiver they like provides feedback if applicable. Uh, if it is a one-way communication, then there is no requirement of feedback. But if you have to provide the feedback, the recipient with the ability to ensure the sender basically that the message was properly received and interpreted. Like it's between like whatever message is encoded by the sender is properly decoded, uh, is decoded will be ensured only when the feedback is sent to the sender. Next is like essentials of effective communication. Now we have seen that yes, communication is vital for the sustenance of a human being in a society, and there is a proper process, a communication process, how the sender ignites the message, he encodes the message, and through a particular channel he sends a message to a receiver, then receiver decodes the message, and after decoding through a response and the feedback, the sender comes to know about the message. Then we have an essentials, that what are the basic requirement for an effective communication. The first and foremost thing is your communication environment, that is a well defined setup like a classroom. We need to have that setup which gives an ambience. Yes, now you are entering into a communication process. Then there is a requirement of cooperation between the sender and the receiver. We need two important thing, that is sender and receiver, and they should understand each other. A cooperation is required when the communication process is going on. Then selection of an appropriate channel, you need to select your channel wisely. For example, a teacher is explaining something to students, and he or she is using a PowerPoint presentation. So in that case, she is doing, she is explaining you students. She is explaining the concept to students via the PowerPoint presentation, and she is also speaking, like verbal communication is also taking place, so that the visual she is showing and the verbal communication she is doing will, she finds that these two combination of channel will be appropriate to express his or her ideas appropriately or convincingly to the students. Next is your correct encoding and decoding of the message. Encoding is the sender's part and decoding is the receiver part. When the sender encodes the things correctly, then only the proper message could be decoded. So it is the responsibility of both the sender and the receiver to ensure that the proper message is encoded and decoded. For that, we have that communication cycle where through a feedback the sender is able to ensure whether the message is properly decoded or not. And the most important thing is that we have discussed that the receipt of a desired response and the feedback, then only you are ensured yes the process is complete, and there is no chances of miscommunication in that. So these are the 5 essentials of effective communication. So we'll just go through these 5 points. Like what we need is, we need one common communication environment like a classroom. There should be a cooperation between the sender and the receiver. Then you need to select the appropriate channel for the communication process. There should be a correct encoding and decoding. Sometimes it happens that the message is not encoded properly, and then the sender expects that the message is decoded in a correct way. So that is not possible. So one needs to ensure that the message is correctly encoded, and then listeners or the receivers, they try to encode the message. If it is not, they are not able to understand it, then they should enter into the process again. They should send the proper feedback that the message is not clear. So that message is not clear will be sent through the response and the feedback. Next is the categories of communication. So on the basis of classifications, we have like on the basis of medium, like through which medium we the process of communication takes place. So we have basically verbal communication and non-verbal communication. Either you send it through the words, like through the oral things or the written things, that is where the words are involved, and non-verbal means where no words are involved. That is through which medium, whether it is through your sign language or through the words you are communicating. So on that basis, you have verbal and non-verbal communication. Then the second is your flow of communication, like in which like you are, your communication is following a proper path, that is it is formally communicated or you are getting some information through an informal channel. So on that basis you have formal communication and informal communication. Then on the basis of audience, also your target audience, we have again two kinds of communication, that is general communication and technical communication, where general communication is for the general people, or I must say a layman, where no technical words or jargons are used, where each and every person who is going through that particular communication can understand the things. And whereas your technical communication is meant for the uh, technical people, where you need a specialized vocabulary, where you use the technical words, where you use jargon. So on the basis of medium, flow and audience, we have classified the communications. On the basis of medium, you have verbal and non-verbal. On the basis of flow, you have formal and informal communication. And on the basis of audience, you have general and technical communication. This we are going to discuss in the upcoming session. Now the role of communication again is very important. When like it communication plays a pivotal role in organization, whether it is a business enterprise or an industry or an academic institution. All managerial or administrative activities involve communication, be it planning, organizing, recruiting, coordinating, or decision making. So, communication basically serves as an instrument to measure the success or growth of an organization, or, in fact, I must say, a person. So, basically, when you talk about an effective communication, it helps in a quicker problem solving. It increases your healthier business relationship. It increases the awareness among employees. Then it helps in stronger decision making, and it leads to less misunderstanding. It means that communication plays a very crucial role in in one's personal life as well as in the professional front. Now we'll talk about the levels of communication, that at how many levels the communication takes place. The first level is your extrapersonal communication, where the communication is between human beings and non-human entities. For example, when your pet dog comes to you wagging its tail as soon as you return home from work, it is an example of extrapersonal communication. Or a parrot responding to your greeting is another example for this. So, in this particular kind of a communication, a perfect coordination and understanding between the sender and the receiver is required, because they are actually understanding the non-verbal cues, they are understanding the emotions where words are not involved, because it is basically taking place between the non-human and non-human human beings and non-human entities. Non-human entities here means the animals. Next is your interpersonal communication. Interpersonal communication is your when you are communicating with your own self. That is when one is communicating with oneself, or this takes place within the individual. We know that the brain is linked to all parts of the body by an electrochemical system. And the kind of communication pertains to thinking. This basically we need to think, and this is, I must say, the first level, because when you think something, then only the next you enter into the next level of communication. So without such internal dialogue, you cannot proceed further to any other level. So intrapersonal is basically, I must say, your inner dialogues. You are communicating with yourself. The next is your interpersonal communication, where communication is between two or more people in proximity. This differs from other kind of a communication because few participants are involved and the interaction is in the close physical proximity to each other, and there are many sensory channels used and the feedback is immediate. This form of communication is advantageous because direct and immediate feedback is possible. If a doubt occurs, it can easily be clarified. Next is your organizational communication. Organization, like communication in organization, takes place at a different hierarchical level. It is extremely necessary for the sustenance of any organization. Since a large number of employees are involved in several different activities, the need to communicate becomes greater in the organization. So whenever you communicate in an organization at a different hierarchical level, we call it the organizational level of communication. And the next is your mass communication. Mass communication, where you are communicating with a large, anonymous, and heterogeneous audience. Anonymous means unknown. It means when you are communicating with unknown people, and heterogeneous means a mixture of people, like a variety of people when you are communicating. Where the opposite of this heterogeneous is homogeneous, where you have a same kind of an audience. For example, if I'm communicating to students of electrical engineering, it means you will have a heterogeneous crowd means the students are technical students, and that too of electrical engineering. But now when you're talking about heterogeneous, it means I'm interacting with the crowd, which is like where you don't have similar, even they're similar, I must say, they are from a different age group, they are from a different field, or they may have a different cultural background also. So that falls into the category of heterogeneous. And for this kind of a communication, basically we require a mediator to transmit information. We have a different, the first thing is we need a mediator in your mass communication. And the example of mass communication are your, like you have journals, you have books, televisions, newspapers. What these are all your example of mass communication, because these channels, they provide information to globally, irrespective of the geographical boundaries. Now when you talk about a mediator, or you can say we also call it a gatekeeper, is basically a person or an organized group of persons active in transferring or sending information from the source to the target audience to a mass media. For example, in a newspaper, the editor makes choices. When you talk about a newspaper, we have editor. So editor is basically the gatekeeper in this mass communication, because he is basically the person who chooses and decides which news should go into the hand of the reader. The editor is therefore the gatekeeper in mass communication process. So these are the certain levels of communication which the communication takes place. So extrapersonal is when you are communicating with human being, between a human being and non-human entities. Intra means you are communicating with yourself. Inter means you are communicating with the other person. Organization means your communication takes place in an organization for official purpose. Or mass communication is when you're communicating with a large, anonymous, and heterogeneous crowd, and for that you need a gatekeeper and a mediator, so that the proper news, the correct information should reach the target audience. I hope you like the session. Thank you and happy learning.